This is a special house. It's the old Florida style home that's all stick frame with no prefab floor trusses or roof trusses. It's all conventionally framed. The old style, the old school way, before trusses, when everything was hand framed. We'll start with a quick tour, and we'll do the foundation first. It's a stem wall foundation, and it has the vents all the way around the house, and there's multiple stem walls because it has interior bearing inside the house and up on the roof, which requires the interior stem walls. So as you can see, the stem wall goes continuous around the house, and with the stem wall it has a tie beam on the top, which is poured solid concrete with a steel rebar that's continuous all the way around the top, and there's J-bolts in there with a pressure treated plate so all the floor joists can rest on top of the stem wall, and they're 2x12 floor joists, and there's multiple access points in the stem wall for your crawl spaces. And we'll see if we can take a look underneath. And with this camera, it's pretty neat. The low light levels in here. And there's two stem walls on the front of the house, which I'll show you when we go to the front porch. And so we'll just take a quick walk around, and the rear steps leading into the kitchen, and then you have to have so many vents in the crawl space that's required by code, and so to ventilate that crawl space, so you have airflow and nice steep pitch roof. And that was the old way of being able to design what we call this house a 1.5 story, because when you see it from the side, if you look at it from the back, you would just think that this is just a standard home with a high pitch roof. But when you look at it from the side, you see the windows up above, and so that tells you right away that there's living space inside of the attic area. So it's not a full 2-story where you have a 2nd-story walls. You actually have the rafters creating the attic space, which allows you to do the 1.5 stories, which once you get inside actually feels like a full 2-story house, but you're actually able to do it with just one story and then build the living space in the attic, which was done for years. And especially if you go around to all of the Florida homes. And like we said, there's two stem walls on the front. There's the first stem wall that you see, and then there's the stem wall that is holding up the front wall of where the front door is. So it allows the floor systems to be lower. So 2x8 yellow pine floor joists were used on the front porch, and 2x12s were used on the house, allowing you a 4-inch step from the floor porch into the house. And the floor joists were attached to a ledger board that was bolted to the stem wall on the house. So that allows you to have this step and the difference. And now we'll go inside and see what a 1.5 story looks like. There's some special design requirements to be able to do a 1.5 story house. We'll start with some simple things like they used 2x6 exterior walls so that they can maximize their insulation and also for strength. And then now we're going to kind of start to pick up some structural elements that allows you to actually build this 1.5 story. You can see where you have the 2x12 yellow pine floor joists, but then there's this other guy that's a different color, and it actually has multiple straps and connectors on those, a little different than the other ones. And of course, and it goes over to another guy that's of the same color with all these floor joist hangers connected to it, and these are called LVLs. That's laminated veneer lumber. It's actually an engineered piece of lumber, and it actually has design loads and calculations for the different LVLs. These happen to be 1.75 inches by 11.25 to match the height of the 2x12, and two of those are put together so that it equals 3 inches, just like you were to put, just like the 2x12s are 1.5 inches. The LVL is also 1.5 inches, and you have two of those, which make up 3 inches, and you have a special 3-inch hanger. And so there's multiple LVLs in this house, so it allows to take the structural loads, all the gravity loads that have to support the different elements of this structure are being carried by a lot of these LVLs. So you see this is an exterior wall. This is the left side of the house. And so you see this LVL, and it goes all the way across, and then it's being supported by all these multiple studs in this bearing wall. And the reason why we know it's a bearing wall is because it has the blocking in between the studs, and it has a double top plate, and then it has this LVL resting on it, and it has multiple studs supporting it. And then if you were to see if this plywood was off the floor, you would actually see the floor joists, and then there would be a stem wall that would run exactly where the interior bearing walls of this house. You're actually going to see multiple interior bearing walls, which means that you'll be able to see exactly where the stem walls are that are down below. So on the right side of the stairs, you can see this other interior bearing wall, and it has the blocking in between. That's to keep the studs from bowing from left to right, and with the weight of the whole, what we'll call the second story, and so that it bears all of that weight. So it's an interior bearing wall for the floor system. So there's two stem walls underneath here, supporting those two interior bearing walls. And then so now you can see where, I'll step back a little bit, you can see where the two LVLs meet each other, and then this LVL goes across and bears on this front wall of the house. And while we're here, this is what is called open above. So all of these rafters and ceiling joists are all hand framed, and it creates this open foyer. So we're standing in the foyer, and we're also standing in, this would be the living room, and you have the front windows looking out to the porch. So we're standing in the family room, and then we have this story above, all open above. And so this LVL is actually supporting these bearing walls, which then supports the rafters and the ceiling joists. So you can see why this guy is very, very important, because not only does it support the second story floor system, it supports the bearing walls, which supports the roof, which allows you to create the front dormer. And so, same with over here, you have the bearing wall, the floor system. Now originally there's on the plans, it's drawn for a wall to be there, for that to be a separate room. But it looks like the owners have decided to make this all open railing, and then all of this would be railing, so that it would allow open space for the, what we'll call the second floor, which, like we said, this is actually a story and a half. So as we'll stay on the first floor, and that's directly in front of us is the kitchen. And you're going to see another LVL that actually spans the whole width of this house, from one end all the way down to the other end. And we might as well continue that view as we walk into the hall bath. So we have an LVL that goes completely from one end to the other, from the right side of the house bearing wall to the left side of the house bearing wall. So you have this LVL in the center. Then we have another set of LVLs. By the way, that's 3 LVLs that are secured together. And then these are 2 LVLs. And then the rest of this, as you can see, is all regular 2x12. And then we have another LVL. And those all run continuous from one side of the house to the other. And when we go upstairs, we'll see why those are important elements in this structure. Now you can see another bearing wall here, so that all of the blocking is there. And so all of this wall, the ones underneath the stairwell, have blocking. So this whole wall, which is the part of the dining area, and also this laundry room. And of course the back door leads out to those steps that we saw on the back of the house. So we got that interior bearing wall, and we'll see why that's important, because it actually picks up the floor joists. So you can see where they're lapped, where you have the 2x12 stop and they're not continuous, because you're not going to have a 2x12 that is as wide as this house. So that's why we have this interior bearing wall, so that we can pick up the bearing for the floor joists. And then that means that there's a stem wall directly underneath this floor that is running from the front of the house to the back of the house. So with that, we might as well just look at the bedrooms real quick. You can see the LVL mixed in with the 2x12s, and that's what's so nice about using the LVL, is that it matches the size of the 2x12, so it fits right into your floor systems. And so we've got some really nice windows in this bedroom and a closet. And then we'll just take a quick look at the master bath. And they went ahead and did a drop ceiling to allow for the plumbing. And then we have the front bedroom. And we'll see why this LVL is important in the story above. And you can see all of the connectors that they used. And they went ahead and used the connectors both top and bottom. And it was just an extra because the plywood itself is actually structural sheathing. But the owners have decided to use the additional Simpson connectors, and those are the connectors for the application for around doors and windows, where the straps are used to secure the studs to the wood headers. And so we'll go ahead, and this house has 2 AC systems. One is, as you saw, the ductwork under the floor. And because this is a wood floor system, as you saw, so we have two AC systems, one for downstairs and one for upstairs. And you definitely want to have that in Florida with the heat, because the heat, it rises, and it's definitely a lot hotter on the second floor than the first. So it's nice to have the 2 ACs. So this is probably some of the amazing stuff that actually shows up why all of that structural components are important. this LVL that you see directly in front of me, that's part of the stair, you'll see a 2x6 right here. And this is probably one of the most important elements, structural elements of this home, that allows us to be truly a old Florida style home, all stick frame. So this 2x6 is bearing on that LVL that spans from continuous from left to right. And that 2x6 goes all the way up to that point right there. And you'll see multiple 2x12s, which are part of the ridge board. That's all hand frame. And that guy, this 2x6, is helping support the whole roof, so that you have a 2x12 ridge board that is continuous from left to right, and it bears on this gable end, and then they have X bracing, and then they have rat runs and ceiling joists that span from this LVL over to the rafters on this side. So that this whole the upper main part of the roof is made up of the 2x12 ridge board with the either 2x10 rafters that have Simpson connectors connecting the rafter to the ridge board, and that ridge board is continuous from one end to the other, and that would be over here where you see this other gable end with the same X bracing. And so now we start to see some structural elements that are real important for creating a stick-framed roof system. You see another LVL, and that LVL is being supported by this bearing wall, which we can see from down below. So you have this lower LVL, which creates this interior bearing wall of the second story, which supports that LVL, which supports all of these rafters and ceiling joists, okay, that go all the way up. And not only that, this LVL goes over and supports another element, which is this guy. So off of this LVL, you have another 2x6 that is going up and supporting this ridge board, which is the front dormer of the home. So it is a key element in helping to support this whole roof. So between this one and this LVL, of course, goes all the way from the one side of the house over to that, we'll call that a column, and then we have that 2x6 supporting that ridge, and then we have this 2x6 supporting the main house ridge. The other thing that this LVL does is that you'll also see that there's another center board for the ceiling joists. So that center board has a hanger that's attached to the LVL and goes all the way out to what is the front dormer of this house. And then it has studs supporting it that go all the way down and is supported by all of the first floor structural wall. And then all of these ceiling joists that are attached to it go over and bear on this second story wall, which we talked about earlier. And then you can see this other structural wall, which supports the rafters, ceiling joists, and LVL, as you can see right there. So that wall there supports all of that roof system. And the only way possible of doing this whole house is with these LVLs. The most cost efficient and practical. Of course, you could use steel, but that would be very expensive. And when they have this structural engineered lumber, these LVLs, they can withstand great loads, and it allows you to create a house like this. So we'll take a look at this rear wall. This is a storage area that is also bearing, because one of the LVL that we showed that's going continuous from left to right is actually underneath that floor system, so that this rear wall is also bearing, because you can see the blocking. So all of this rear wall, which is the back bedroom, and which is over here, might as well go over there. And so we have this back bedroom, and we've got our nice ceiling joists that are 2x6 yellow pines. And then we have the storage area back in there. And then of course we have all our duct systems that go over to the AC platform that's going to be over here for the second story. And so all the main trunk lines, and then so that allows you to feed all the second story. Got a closet here. Got this closet here for the bedroom. And we'll go real quick into the second story bath area. Didn't need to do a drop ceiling in here because we had a little bit of an attic space there for all the ductwork and of course all the plumbing. And then this here was going to be another either bedroom or office, but they so far it looks like they decided to leave this open. And you can see the blocking for the roof, and this is, you can see the open below where it looks like the railing's going to be going. So we have this area here. You can get a little better view, bigger view of the whole upper part, and you can see where the two sides of the stairwell will have railing on both sides and all open. And we got nice big windows there. It's really a great space, really a great space. And of course this dormers on the front have the double windows on this rather wide dormer. This is definitely the older style Florida homes with these real wide front dormers, as you saw from the front elevation. And we'll take one last look at it from the outside. And it's just a real pleasure to be able to design. And the amazing thing is that they didn't have LVLs when they designed them 100 years ago. And they stick framed them. So they had to use collar ties and pick up as much bearing as they could. And so we're fortunate to be able to have LVLs and 4x6 columns that can go all the way up to the ceilings. And this one structural member follows the continuous load path all the way from the ridge all the way down to the foundation of the stem wall. So if you were to just to do a little quick run through, you've got, for a continuous load path, you've got your ridge board, then your 4x6 post, then you've got an LVL underneath here that spans from the whole width of the house. You have an interior bearing wall that has a stem wall that has a tie beam on the top that's continuous. That is a 4-course stem wall that goes down to a foundation that is 8 inches by 24 inches wide with 3 pieces of steel. That creates your whole continuous load path for everything in this house. And just a quick look at the front porch where we have the ceiling joists and then the hand-framed rafters. So you can sit on this nice porch, nice raised porch. And enjoy your front porch of your classical Florida home. And just one last more look at the front exterior. So now that you can see how the structure is actually built, we all can have an appreciation of what the front of the house looks like and what it took to actually make this house look the way it is. And to say that it was an honor and a privilege to design this house is an understatement.